Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and today I'm in Mojave, California for the first ride review of the all-new Harley-Davidson Pan America. So let's take a second and just appreciate the significance of Harley-Davidson creating an adventure bike. They really haven't created a non-cruiser since, well, before I was born. And really what you're gonna see are two different versions of this. There's a standard version, and then there's the special, which is in front of me right now. And this gets all the extra add-ons: crash bars, skid plates, Olean steering damper. There's a ton of things on this, but the main real upgrade is the electronic suspension and all of that it brings with it, which we'll discuss a little bit further in the video. Both bikes at their core is gonna have the 1250cc Revolution Max engine. This is going to be an all-new liquid-cooled dual overhead cam engine from Harley-Davidson, variable valve timing, and really one of the things that excites me most about this is the fact that it's got hydraulic valve lash adjusters, so you never have to adjust the valves. Now, Harley's claiming about 150 horsepower and about 94 foot-pounds of torque, give or take. So really, that's going to put this right smack dab in the middle of something like a BMW R1250 GS and a KTM 1290 Adventure. So let's see how good the engine is out on the street. So I'm currently on the Pan America Special, and just so you're aware, there is no differences with the engine or the ride modes between the two bikes. So pretty much everything we're going to talk about here is the same regardless of which model you're on. Now, what I will say is that this engine did surprise me. It is not what I was expecting from Harley-Davidson. You know, you can lug it down low, you can get down to like 2,000 RPM, but it really doesn't like being down there. It much prefers to cruise around 3,000 to 5,000 RPM, and then once you get over 5,000 RPM is when the engine really wants to start waking up. So it's definitely much more of a revver than I was expecting, and it's definitely much more of a revver than I think the average Harley-Davidson audience is going to be familiar with. Now, the engine is paired with a 6-speed gearbox, and the main difference here is that it's not that typical Harley gearbox with a really distinct clunk. It's much more modern in its feel and its actuation, so really smooth shifting. There is no quick shifter available, and when we asked Harley-Davidson about that, they said they weren't going to comment on future products. So as of right now, no quick shifter for the transmission. The engine is controlled with 5 different ride modes, and then you are going to have one programmable mode that you can use to program something on the regular standard version, and then the special is going to have 3 different slots for programmable modes. That's going to control things like lean angle sensitive ABS, as well as traction control. There is a 6-axis IMU on this bike, very sophisticated. The other thing that's going to be a little bit different with the brakes on this is that it's a linked braking system. So the harder you pull down the front lever, it applies rear braking as well. You are able to turn that off and disable it when you're riding off-road. So I spent most of the day on the street in sport mode. Sport mode means that I'm going to have minimal traction control, a slightly more aggressive throttle, and then you're going to have a pretty firm setup from the damping from the suspension. The Pan America Special gets a semi-active suspension from Showa, and that's both front and back. Now, what semi-active means in this particular case is that the damping is set based on the ride mode that you're in, but then the preload is constantly adjusting to give you 30% sag of the 7.5 inches of travel that this bike has. But really the most innovative thing that we've seen Harley-Davidson do with this electronic suspension is the introduction of adaptive ride height control. For about $1,000 extra added on to the Pan America Special only, really what this does is, as you come to a stop, the bike automatically lowers itself, and then when you take off again, it raises back up. So depending on your rider weight, it'll lower the bike roughly about an inch or two as you come to a stop. If you come to a quick stop, it lowers it really quickly. If you come to a slow stop, it slowly, gradually lowers out. Then if you accelerate away, it loads that preload back in. Really the story here is that if you pair that with the accessory low seat, you're looking at a seat height that's pretty much under 30 inches, which is really impressive. It makes it, you know, off the top of my head knowledge, the most approachable adventure bike out there for shorter riders, and you don't sacrifice on any of the other bells and whistles. It comes with the electronic suspension and all the goodies that entails. on the special version. What I will say is that the handling on the road has been neutral handling, right? It doesn't fall into a corner too quickly. You don't have to muscle it too much. You just kind of give a little bit of a push in the handlebar, and it holds the line really well. So I've been enjoying this quite a bit on the street. We'll see how it does off-road.
So while I enjoyed the adaptive ride height control for street riding, for off-road, I locked it in the tallest position, and then I also went ahead and I put on the tall seat to try that out. So it gave me a seat height of just shy of 34 inches, and then I used off-road plus riding mode. Off-road plus mode is going to minimize traction control to its absolute lowest setting. It's going to disable ABS at the rear wheel, and then it's going to also disable the linked braking feature with this. Now, in addition to that, you're also going to get a softer throttle response, so it's not quite as twitchy off-road, and then you're also going to have a softer damping setting with the suspension.
So the question on everybody's mind is, how good is the Pan America off-road? The one thing I really like about the Pan America is that it's much more approachable off-road. It's a lot easier to ride for somebody just starting out. It's a very forgiving motorcycle as long as you're keeping the pace down. Playing with the suspension settings, I originally had it set to the softer damping setting, and the firm is actually better whether you're going slow or fast. Most people are going to be most comfortable around, I'd say, 35 miles an hour with this thing off-road. You know, we're in some deeper straightaway stuff right now, and I've been able to get up to about 50. After that, it does start to lose a little bit of confidence. So it's definitely one of those bikes where it's better and more approachable and more comfortable, you know, at slower speeds. But as you begin to really turn up the volume, it does begin to get a little squirrely on you. The other part of this too is the ground clearance. There's just not enough. I can't tell you how many times I've scraped the skid plate already. And then the other part of that too is just the overall ergonomics. I think for a taller rider, I definitely would go with the tall seat. But even then, you know, I have adaptive ride height turned off right now, and I can get my feet firmly on the ground. The one thing I will say is that, you know, there's a lot of heat coming off the engine out here. Now we're in the desert, so I'll give it a little bit of a pass, but I'm guessing, you know, even if I was riding this back in Pennsylvania, there'd be a lot of heat coming off of my feet. Now that being said, out of the big adventure bikes that I've ridden, this is easily the most approachable for off-road riding. I think there's gonna be a lot of people out there that are pretty happy with this bike, you know, as long as you don't turn up the pace too much.
So the standard Pan America comes in around $17,000, well, just shy of $17,500. The Pan America Special comes in right around 20 grand, and the bikes as we rode them with the cross-spoke wheels and the adaptive ride height control comes in around $21,500. And what that means is it fits smack dab in the middle of the current adventure segment for large displacement motorcycles. Now, I've got a lot that I want to talk about in the actual article, but right now let's just wrap up with a few things that I liked and a few things that I didn't like. So first and foremost, the adaptive ride height control is a game changer. It really is going to be something that's revolutionary for shorter riders or for novice riders that have always wanted to get into big bikes but have been a bit intimidated by it. So the other part that I really like about this is the hydraulic lash adjusters for the valves. So that means no valve checks, lower maintenance cost. And again, I think it's really great that Harley brought this innovation to the market. Now the final thing here is going to be the engine. So it revs up high, plenty of power, and then down low, it's actually rather docile and easy to ride. So again, thinking about people getting into adventure riding for the first time, and I don't think I mentioned this in the review yet, but the brakes, the Giant Brembos, are fantastic. So a few things that I didn't like. First and foremost, the electronics are fantastic, but the dash layout, it's hard to read. There's a lot of small little numbers, and there's so many damn buttons on this bike. The second big miss, the way that I see it, is the location of the regulator rectifier in the battery box. It's at the bottom of the engine, right in front, and if you go with the stock skid plate that comes with the Special, it's rather exposed right behind the front wheel. That's my third point, is that the protection on this bike should be a bit beefier. You should get the aftermarket accessory skid plate as a factory option, and then when you're looking at these handguards, you know, they just pop right on and off. I don't see any manufacturers in this segment really putting larger aluminum handguards on their bikes, and I would have loved to have seen it with this bike. But all things considered, I think Harley knocked it out of the park, and they really brought a contender to the established segment of large adventure bikes. And there's so much more that I want to talk about, but for right now, I've got to get out of here because we're running out of light. So please make sure you check out the article over on Common Tread. I'll include a link below. Subscribe to us on YouTube to keep up with all the videos that we're rolling out. And thank you for joining me for this first ride review of the all-new Harley-Davidson Pan America. I'm Spurge. Enjoy the ride.